Good afternoon. It's really a pleasure to be here. Already today I've met a lot of people that are Twitter friends that I've never seen in person, and I thought Margie was here also, Kristen. It's very exciting to put faces, Mark, of course, who cut out on my talk. It's very exciting to see these people and put faces with them. Social media is social. That's really one of the lessons I got when I was very fortunate. One of the early people I connected with on Twitter was Mark Schirr, and he taught me that idea that it's not just broadcasting to people, it's also communicating with them and getting in touch with them. I'm delighted to do this. I'm a big believer in crowdsourcing. An earlier speaker today showed the slide of Party like it was 1999, the dot-bomb era. I worked for a succession of online startups during that period. Five different online, new, exciting, eyeball attracting startups. And two of them got traction and actually have ended up being fairly successful. The two that were successful got all of their innovation from their customers. And that's where I actually learned about crowdsourcing, customer collaboration, the key concepts we're talking about here today. The example I'm going to go through, though, is actually a fairly simple example for my course in social media marketing. And we had the last class last evening, which meant I had to take the bus this morning at 3 a.m. But it's still a delight to be here. So, about a year ago, a proposal for a grant went out to the faculty at my university. It was attractive to me for two different reasons. One, there was cash involved. That's always a nice thing. And secondly, it's an opportunity to bypass the bureaucracy. Creating a new course is tough, especially something that sounds like a fad. A lot of people said, I've heard this repeated, you won't believe it, this crowd won't believe it, but social media is just a fad. Our students don't need to study it. Or nobody will sign up for that course. That one was really funny. It filled up in 2 hours. And I had to force add people in order to get some people I wanted in the course. But it was, but anyway, so I was able, the attraction of doing the grants, it bypassed all the bureaucracy. If I got the grant, the course was going to go forward. So the problem was a tight date. I had about a month. I did the first thing that all good professors do. I did an internet search to find somebody else's syllabus. Actually, I learned that on Wall Street. It was an old saying of Solomon Brothers. You have eyes, plagiarize. It's an innovation. It's an innovation strategy. And, but there were, believe it or not, this is just about a year ago, there was absolutely zero. There was no syllabus for an undergraduate course in social media marketing available online. I checked a couple weeks ago, there were about 4 or 5. So it would have been a lot better now. But I couldn't do the traditional one. So I had my basic outline that had about 4 topics on it and had to prepare the grant. So I did the obvious thing. I tweeted for help. And I tweeted for help and got a lot of help. I mean, this, in some ways this isn't fair. I'm focusing on 10 people that helped me a lot. But these were 10 that really did help. I probably missed a couple that I should have named. At least one of them is here at the conference, Mark Schirr. But something else interesting to notice, the second column, half of them were new. They hadn't been part of my community until this effort. So they were introduced in by other people in the Twitter community, but half of them were people I'd already talked to. None of them I had ever met before in person. But they all gave very willingly and helped a lot. And I was able to put in a good grant proposal and won the grant. So my course was going to exist. That was the good news. I got $4,000 of cash, and I had the right to create a new course. The bad news is I had only 6 months before that course would start at this point. And even though my syllabus was a lot more developed, it still was pretty, it still didn't describe. I knew I wanted to have a couple projects. I knew I had to cover a few major topics, but it still wasn't very fleshed out. So I knew I had to go to I had to go, once again plead to my Twitter community. Only this time I knew I needed it to be more thorough, faster. I needed it to be a better process than it was the first time. So how did I accelerate the process, draw in more participants, and keep the collaborators who are there interested, get them involved in it more? I just stole a very simple trick that everybody who knows crowdsourcing knows is, and any kind of collaboration, it's the basis of really Lean Startups by Eric Ries, the effectuation, a theory of entrepreneurship, a whole set of theories, rapid prototyping by Tomka, get something that people can touch and see and play with and use. The simplest version that works, that people can actually get a sense of what you're trying to do. In my case, I couldn't start teaching the course, but I could post the syllabus I was working. So I posted a working model, a syllabus, kept changing it. The act of changing it gave feedback. I said, who gave me this idea? Look how it changed. And it really did work. I got accelerated help, more participants, rapid suggestions, and I fleshed out a real course. A course I finished teaching last night. So it actually did come together. It got to the point that it was so interactive, I honestly couldn't say, when I looked at it at the end, was that my idea or was it somebody else's? I mean, ideas were bouncing back and forth. We had two wonderful projects in the course. I kind of had the idea when I started the course that I wanted a retail type project and I wanted a B2B type project so people would get hands-on experience in a couple, but they certainly had advanced quite a bit by the time I launched the course. So some of that would have happened from me thinking about it, but it certainly happened a lot faster from me thinking about it and bouncing it off the hundreds of people that were helping me on Twitter and on my blog. So I sent out being an academic, I submitted this as a paper, obviously. So I sent out a questionnaire. Why did you help me? I'm keeping every penny of the $4,000. I'm teaching the course. I'm taking all the credit. So why did you help me with it? Why did you help me with this undertaking? And that's always been an issue in open innovation. And a lot of it is for the inherent feeling that they participated in something. I did a benefit by posting changes and giving credit to people. People like getting some credit for the changes they make. A couple things, though, on that list you read there, a couple things that hit me in a little bit different way, and that's why I called this, instead of crowdsourcing, I call it community sourcing, because there were several people that said something along the lines of, because we're part of a learning community, or that we are part of your personal learning network. Those are terms I really wasn't familiar with at the time. I looked them up. They're in Wikipedia. You know, I wouldn't you don't let your students use them, but you use them yourself. But the personal learning networks are not new. We have long relied on colleagues and acquaintances to supplement our knowledge. And that got me to thinking. You know, I always like to think back to past experiences. In the early 90s, when I was a bond salesperson, before I got involved with internet startups, my company moved me from Chicago to Hong Kong. That's Hong Kong there. That's a junk and next to the nice skyline. It's a great place, by the way. But anyway, when they moved me to Hong Kong, I suddenly became less smart. It was like my bond market IQ dropped by 30%. And I was kind of amazed by it. I was wondering what happened to me. You know, I blamed it on a series of factors. The hours were long in Hong Kong. US hours were at night, so I worked a number of 15 and 20-hour days sometimes. The entertainment was harder over there, so maybe alcohol was killing brain cells. There a variety of things could have been going on. But it dawned on me what had really happened when I went back to Chicago for a visit. And I realized that my daily routine in Chicago, I used to ride the train in, next to me would be our economist, across from me would be the economist for one of the major banks in town, they would argue about what was going on in the economic sphere and in the markets. I would get to work, and all the floor traders were upstairs waiting to go down. They talked about what happened yesterday, who was doing the big trades. I fielded a couple calls from international desks asking me what was going on. And at the end of that, I was smart. I had some ideas. I had a feel for what was going to go on in the market. I lost that when I went to Hong Kong. So it wasn't really, I really hadn't gotten dumber, but in Chicago, it was augmented Gary. In Hong Kong, it was just Gary. That was an earlier, and the cool thing is in the day of social media, you don't have to be just Gary. You can take your augmentation with you. Today I could have taken some of it with me when I moved to Hong Kong. So that's the second takeaway from this course, not just the beauty of crowdsourcing or community sourcing to do a new product, but also the ongoing benefit of augmenting your knowledge and your thinking and your questioning from having a good community that you've built around your interests. So ideas I took away from this is everybody should be building that community today. When you start following people on Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn, Pinterest, Quora, Instagram, wherever else, Google+, follow some of the leaders in your field. Follow people who are smart and have good ideas and will make you smarter. Contribute to the community now. You're getting paid back while you're doing it, and you'll get paid back later when you need their help. Once you have to go for them for help, try to use the prototyping idea. Try to show them as well as you can, what it is you're working with, how it's changing, what effect they're having on it. So allow them to have whatever hands-on effect you can have while you're actually doing the crowd or community sourcing portion of your innovation. Maybe today I've gotten a little more comfortable with wikis. Maybe I've done a wiki rather than upgrading on my blog, but something to make it a little more tangible for them. One last thing. Last night was such an upper in my class. We reviewed our 2 projects. I'm only going to tell you one of them. One of them was the retail, what I call the retail project, was with an author who'd written a self-help book for women. She had a launch date, which was perfect, was the last week of our class. She wanted help to make one of the Amazon bestseller lists. Amazon was going to list her in 4 topics. She had a launch date of April 24th. She wanted to make the bestseller list in one of those 4 categories. Our class worked with her. Ironically, she had a pushback on doing a blog because she doesn't like to write. So our class worked with her on a video blog, and we worked with her on tweeting and using this in Pinterest, since it was focused on women. I know there's guys on Pinterest, but not many. And she made 3 of the 4 lists. Not 1, but 3. And she was so excited that she had tears in her eyes. She was talking to my class last night. So that was such a happy ending to this community sourcing project. And I urge all of you, even if you're not creating a new project, if you're creating a new project, absolutely use community sourcing. But just in your everyday professional lives, build a community that makes you better. Thank you.